Free for all.
Yeah.
Rolling intro. Hi, everybody. This is Cirina Catania. I am with OWC Digital in the OWC Radio booth here at NAB 2019, where we are introducing the new Creative Club. And I'm really excited to have Andy Cochrane here from Springbok Entertainment. I love the title, Immersive Content Producer. That's great. So tell me a little bit about what does Springbok do and
Sure.
what do you do for Springbok?
So Springbok it's a content creation company, and literally you name the type of content, and the folks involved and the company itself has been producing it. So Springbok is Brandon Zamel, Stephen Charles Jaffe, and myself. Stephen is a producer with decades of experience in Hollywood, produced Ghost, Strange Days, Star Trek VI, very established sort of traditional producer. Brandon came from most recently Johnny Depp's company, doing a lot of digital and interactive, Disney Interactive, things like that. And then I came through VFX, and for 6.5 years was running digital and interactive projects, directing commercials, and doing VFX supervision for Guillermo del Toro at his company Murata. And I partnered up with the Springbok guys about a year ago, and we're developing a slate of traditional stuff, TV, film, as well as a ton of different immersive and interactive projects, VR, AR, just sort of any. It's telling stories, and it's finding the best. It's telling stories, and it's finding the best medium to tell them in, versus trying to just kind of like use VR to advertise film, or do a TV show to get a movie, whatever. So each of our projects is kind of sort of what experience do we want the audience to have, or what story do we want to tell, and how best to do that. And sometimes that's a movie, sometimes that's VR, sometimes that's going to be an app, sometimes that's something totally different. So the main experience that we're going to premiere in about 2 weeks now at Tribeca is a VR experience that is it's essentially an immersive experience of the life story of a cancer survivor. Her name is Maggie Kudirka. She's a ballerina, and the entire project is a gift to Stand Up to Cancer for them to use as a fundraiser to try and stand up. There's a lot of sort of cancer-focused charities that do a lot of, and nonprofits that do a lot of different areas of focus. And Stand Up tries to raise as much money as possible and directly fund the research. So they're not just sort of handing the money over and hoping it does good. They're actually putting together the studies. And so this particular experience will be used by them at fundraisers and other events to essentially kind of really drive the message home and to try to raise as much as they can. So, and they raise a lot of money, so we're really hoping that they can leverage this in a big way.
There is a huge story here, so I'm actually going to take you back.
Okay.
I'm going to take you further back to, because it's always very interesting to me when I'm talking to creative people to find that moment in their life when they first figured it all out, that this is what they wanted to do. I was just talking to someone earlier this morning, and we had both, when we were like 5, 6, and 7, taken apart our family's telephone and had it spread out all over
the TV.
You did the TV.
Yep.
Okay. So how old were you when you first started doing what your mom and dad would say are creative projects?
I mean, definitely from a very young age. There's a pretty famous story, almost from before I can remember, I was so addicted to television that they would disassemble the TV. So the TV, it was up on top of a chest of drawers, and I had to have been like 4 or 5 or 6, and I would push a chair over to the chest of drawers and reach behind the TV and plug the coax from the wall to the cable box to the TV and watch TV while nobody knew I was watching TV, and then I would disassemble it and put it back to the way it was. And like I was doing that for like a year before I could do it.
Unbelievable.
And I could find the right port, like blindly, like reaching behind it, standing on this chair.
That's
and
hilarious.
I vaguely remember doing it, but just such a fiend for. I mean, it was always
moving
screens.
images, right?
Yeah, moving images, but then also I think that has over time expanded to sort of any technology. Like I'm a very techie person.
So
I really
you're left
like
in
it.
the right brain kind of person to do what you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and definitely, I think they're in constant conflict because there's times where the left brain is like, "This is so cool," and the right brain is like, "Nobody cares." And then there's times where the right brain is like, "Oh, it's such a moving story," and the left brain is like, "Yeah, but it's boring." So
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely a constant conflict, and I try to be very cognizant of like knowing that people aren't going to necessarily love the thing that I love about something,
That's okay, right?
And make it that something that they can love, on top of that or despite that. And so I do try and kind of not be like, you don't understand. it's the and I think that's been a big problem for all of us in immersive, is that it's only very, 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 very recently, and this project that we're about to release, I think, in my mind, is the first one that I've been involved with that you don't have to start. Anytime you put somebody in a headset, you usually have the same spiel, which is like, tell them how VR works in general. You can look all around, but then like pre-apologize for what they're about to experience. And so you sort of be like, just so you know, this was very expensive and difficult, and we've worked on it for a long time. So just know that going in. And then they put it on and they go like, that was great, but I could see the pixels, and why was there like a line between? And it's like, again, remember, really difficult, very expensive, very hard. And that sucks, because that's not a good experience.
No, and that's kind of like telling them that the roast was in the oven for a long, long time.
Yeah, just know how hard I worked on this.
Roast, and they're thinking, yeah, but
It's
I wanted
really
more
salty.
time, or rosemary, or whatever, right?
Or worse, it's just like, yeah, but it's burned.
Go, there you go.
and I think we're finally sort of exiting out of the like, I need you to know how this works for you to be able to appreciate it.
Right.
And entering into, here's a story, here's an experience. Just get lost, have fun, enjoy it.
So why VR? I mean, obviously you've been working for a while. So what did you start out in that led you to that? Take me from plugging in the TV when you were 5 to now creating these amazing world-class VR projects. So what happened in the middle?
I'll tell the 10-second version and then the slightly longer version. The 10-second version is basically, I've always had a bunch of interests, and about 4 years ago, VR kind of became a thing, and a lot of my disparate, disconnected interests suddenly applied.
Wow.
And so.
So what were those?
So the trains. I always, I was making movies with my family's video camera from when I was 8. Like, I've always had a love of cinema. I always had a dream of being a movie director. Coming to Hollywood, went to film school, and when I graduated, film school in 2002 into an industry that was changing and has now, I think, firmly become something that it wasn't what I fell in love with. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Being a movie director is more like being the head of a committee. There's a lot of moving
baggage. Parts and a lot of people that are moving
it's a very
those
small
moving
club,
parts.
And the road to it is not very fun.
Right.
And so there's a lot of aspects. Sort of the job I fell in love with doesn't exist anymore to a degree. There is a job that is a movie director, but it's not the thing that I wanted to do and be. So that kind of has been like a sad thing to me.
But you had to come to LA in order to find that out, right?
No,
Where
absolutely.
were you raised? Were you raised in LA?
Born in upstate New York, raised in Northern California. Moved to LA for school and been here since. But
so then you realized maybe it's not directing, and then what happened?
And then I had these other threads. Always did theater. I did improv for years. Bizarrely,
that's cool.
I've always had that love of kind of like improvisational team collaborative kind of work, and I also was doing a lot of really high tech stuff with the improv. We were doing shows where we were doing like essentially live broadcast, but in a theater. So we had green screen, we had remote crews running tapes in, we had video mixing and CG puppets. Like, it was insane, and loved that. But just nobody saw it. There's no. And then from that, we were doing videos of our shows, and 100 people would come to our show and 4,000 people would watch the video of the show, and we started doing the math, and then we moved more into doing web video. So I was really into that, and so just kind of moving through these different sort of column hobbies of short films and improv and web video, and doing these really high tech things, and then working in VFX and sort of really knowing that. And bizarrely, really loving haunted houses. I've always loved making. I don't like going to them. I like making them. And
so you're really popular at Halloween. Oh, you have kids, right?
I do.
Do you build haunted houses with your kids?
We can't in our new place, but our old place, we had this amazing alley between our house and the one next to it that would just be this big tunnel of terror every Halloween. It was amazing.
And you've stunted your child's growth from the beginning.
I'll get them into haunted houses.
That's great.
But then all of these completely incompatible hobbies I've either made the mature decision to stop doing that and focus on something else, but they all sort of came together. And then when VR became a thing, it was oh, everything's long take, and I've always on the filmmaker side, always loved long take. I love one of my favorite movies of all time is Boogie Nights, and just the long take is one of my favorite things ever. And there's a few people that are really, really good at it, and I've always loved that. VR is long take. You can edit, sure, but every edit is teleportation.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So it's better to just do elaborate staging. I was doing elaborate long take stuff in high school, and I love it. So it's oh, okay, all of a sudden that sort of niche, you can't make every movie that way. Now it's oh, you need that for VR. When you're making a haunted house, it's experience design. Right, what's it going to look like? What's it going to sound like?
Sure.
If there's a theme. Haunted houses are not just a disparate. It's oh, the aliens have landed. Oh, there's a killer on the loose. There's a theme. There's a story happening. It's more like theme park design than anything else. Well, guess what? That's how you make a VR narrative. You think about things more from an experiential side than from a narrative film side. If you've got a bunch of actors that have to sort of be very natural, who's really good at being very natural? Improvisers, because they're used to sort of thinking on their feet, being in the moment, engaging. They're not sort of up here repeating the script. They're
also worried about this. Yeah, they're just having fun.
Yeah. So guess what? All my friends are, all my actor friends are improvisers. So all those pieces kind of came together around VR as oh yeah, I've been planning for this my whole life. Of course, yeah, I wanted to be a VR director. But no, it wasn't the plan. But it was the hobbies suddenly all paid off in 6 months and came together and came back and it was just I get to do the things I love that I had to stop because they weren't applicable, and now they're applicable. So
living life joyously. I can't think of anything better than that. Doing what you love.
Yeah.
Doing it with joy and doing it really well. So talk to me about Springbok, and you have 4 partners, you said?
That's myself, Brandon, and Steven.
Okay, so 3 partners. Who does what, and how do you interact in the company?
So we have described ourselves as a Venn diagram in terms of, in the middle is experiences, movies, TV, film, whatever, or VR, AR, whatever it is. Steven definitely encompasses a incredibly deep knowledge of traditional filmmaking. Not just, he's an encyclopedia of, nobody has seen more, nobody knows more, nobody remembers more. He'll remember a shot from some movie from 1934 and he'll know exactly who edited it, and he's incredible. And his sort of his knowledge and his network is very much feature film, a traditional side of things. Brandon is much more sort of business focused and is also a good bridge between those worlds. I have definitely lived more in the VFX post side of things as well as these new interactive immersive media. So we overlap, Brandon and I overlap sort of on the business side of digital. Steven and I overlap in that, I know film, I know how to write, I know how to direct. Brandon and Steven obviously overlap on their side. And in the middle is just sort of we between us have the skills required to come up with a good idea, figure out who's going to be needed to execute it, run that group, and just sort of kind of like manage it. And there's a huge amount of kind of three-way sort of like, can you handle that? Can you handle that? I don't know about this. Will you explain this? From all of us to all of us.
That's awesome.
So
do you get along? Do you fight?
No, they're great.
Sometimes we fight.
Yeah.
But it's when you care about people, sometimes you fight.
No, it's definitely Brandon and I have actually we met through VR, and we've been friends through VR. And he's been one of those, not just sort of like, oh, we're contemporaries. We both are into VR. We've been like actual friends,
That's
for
awesome.
years.
So talk to us about who some of your clients are and what projects you're working on.
So the big project that's about to come out is it's sponsored by HP, Intel, and Otherworld. It's produced by Springbok, and it benefits Stand Up to Cancer. We've literally been working on this since June of last year. We did our captures.
So it's been almost a year.
It's been this has been, not the sole focus, but it's been, a very, very, very heavy focus since, in July we were doing all of our prep. August we did our captures. It features volumetric video. Or it's centered around volumetric video. Intel has a stage, and Microsoft has a stage in LA as well. Intel's is better for sort of crowds, larger objects and people, and Microsoft's is much better. It's an 8-foot diameter. Intel's is, I think, a 60-meter diameter, so it's much, much, much larger. It's much, horses and crowds and stuff. The Microsoft stage is much more focused on one person at a time, maybe two. Activities that can be contained to an 8-foot circle. So we did all of our captures in August, and we had to figure out how to edit volumetric video, and then we did it. And then they gave our dailies back to them, basically our selects. They gave us 3D data. Then we had to figure out how to edit in 3D, essentially, and not like stereo, but actual 3D, volumes, and do things like retime and reposition and scale and things that we know how to do in CG, and things that have an analog in 2D in video, but now we're in this new place that's sort of like live action CG.
So what software are you using to drive the editing of the 3D?
So we did kind of. It's one of those things where it's like there's what we did and there's what we would do.
Right.
So a big part of this project, the reason for the time frame is there's no roadmap, there's no sort of like plugins, there's no buttons, and so our edit was done in DaVinci Resolve in their edit page, and we gave those dailies back to Metastage. That's a Microsoft stage in LA. It's called Metastage. They gave us back 3D scans, essentially, like moving 3D scans. Those had to go through Maya. We took them into Blender, did a bunch of retiming, repositioning. We've been color corrected. We color corrected the textures back in DaVinci. And then at the end of the day, everything ends up in Unity for playback. Mm-hmm. There's some real-time lighting happening. There's a ton of reflections. The story features a lot of mirrors. The first act, there's like these 3 mirrors in front of you. And in the second act, there's 3 giant mirrors around you.
Is that the homage to Hitchcock kind of thing?
It's there's a little bit of an homage to a couple different things. That is one of Steven's favorite scenes.
I guessed it.
And we've referenced it on other projects, but
but not on this one.
On this one, the mirrors are more. We're playing with the limitations of the media, so the captures. You're not limited by time. They can capture something like up to 2 hours.
Camera position's so difficult.
Well, there's no cameras,
okay.
Right? In terms of like in the playback, you're in a VR headset and you can move wherever you want. And so the way the Metastage works is there's 108 cameras in a cylinder, and you put whatever you want to capture in the middle.
Wow.
And there's a little 8-foot dotted circle, essentially. Anything that leaves that circle disappears forever. So if so much as a finger exits the volume, it's gone. So you have to be really careful to keep all your captures in this 8-foot circle. And so we had very strategic, and also our key light couldn't be moved. It was a huge sky panel. So we had to rotate the action inside this cylinder in terms of like, I want you to walk from there to here, say this, and then walk to there. And then 2 minutes later, now walk from there to there to there. And it was all about trying to, we had choreographed everything beforehand, and we knew where each performance would fit in an 8-foot circle. Maggie was actually in it. We captured Maggie. She represented herself at a younger age as well as today, post-treatment.
So let me ask you, first of all, what is OWC? You mentioned OWC is one of the sponsors.
Yeah.
What are they? How are they helping you?
So OWC provided the servers. So we're running, so we've got all this data. We've got tens of terabytes of data. The raw data from Metastage, just our captures, it was 2 hours of captures, and just the raw unprocessed data is something like 58 terabytes. And then that all needs to get turned down, processed and combined down. So the project's being done in a small little pop-up studio, and it's completely portable. The whole thing can move around. We've set it up in a couple of days. It's really phenomenal. And so we have 10 workstations, and they're all on a OWC Valkyrie, which is the new SSD server. So there's a Valkyrie that's serving 10 gig fiber to all the stations. They're all render farmed, so these terabytes and terabytes of data, we're able to kind of move them around machine to machine. And do all the renders we need to do. And then we also have an OWC Jupiter, which is we've got flash storage and disk storage essentially, and they're backing up constantly. So basically, they're mirrored clone of each other. The Jupiter is slightly larger; it's an 80 terabyte. The Valkyrie is a 50 terabyte. So there's actually we've got a sort of extra data on the Jupiter, stuff we don't need constant access to, but it's there if we need it, basically.
Isn't it amazing that data grows like kudzu?
It's nuts. It's
unbelievable.
Well, if you think about the Metastage side of it alone,
yeah,
you've got 108 4K cameras running at 30 frames per second. So it's like, I never shot high-speed film, but I've shot high-speed, on digital high-speed. And it's like all the stories of folks that had to shoot high-speed film, like Photosonics and, these like 2,000, 3,000 frame per second cameras, where it's sort of like, roll camera, cut, oh God. So you roll camera, and there's I think there's a laziness to a lot of modern shoots of like, data's cheap. And so you'll be on set. My favorite thing is watching a camera assistant when a director is kind of being wishy-washy, because they're always like, still rolling, 48 frames per second, still rolling, and you can see the panic.
Like, hello,
we have to dump this footage.
Still rolling.
We have to dump this footage.
Frames per second.
But on Metastage, there is no doubt. They have a 50-node server farm that's on the stage that has these enormous exhaust fans, because it will cook itself, in a matter of minutes.
Absolutely.
And so you shut those fans off, you roll the cameras, you do your take, you cut, everything turns back on. So it's like shooting high speed, where how much data. They'll be like, it's fine, we've got terabytes of storage, it's fine. But you feel it.
It's really scary.
You feel that data just
absolutely
crunching. And we
imagine Phantom's new 2,000 frame per second camera.
Oh, it's nuts.
Can you imagine?
4K? No.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Before we go, because I could talk to you for hours, we have to do this again because we're really just getting started. Talk to me about the ballerina and where this is going to premiere. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Give us like a visual representation of what you've been shooting. Yeah.
So the best place to see it, there's it's online. There's the piece is called The 100%. And it's just THE100PCD.com, the100%.com. We premiere at Tribeca at the end of April, so about 2.5 weeks out. Yeah,
You're not nervous, are you?
Okay. I got a whole team in LA right now.
You're premiering at Tribeca in about 2 weeks, end of April.
Yeah.
And it's called the 100%.
It's called the 100%, and it features it's the life story of Maggie Kudirka. She is a cancer survivor. She's still dealing with cancer,
and she's a ballerina.
She was a ballerina.
Okay.
When she got diagnosed, she was 23. She's 27 now. She's been living with cancer since she was 23, and she basically she was solely focused on dance. And then that is the one thing that cancer took away from her. So her story is about how do you lose everything, and how do you come back from that? Like, how do you find a new thing when the sole focus of your life is she cannot dance. She can dance, but she can't be a professional. So she had to find a new purpose in life. And so her story is told as if it was like a play, like a theater performance with ballerinas and beautiful narration. And you are standing in the middle of that. You're on stage. You're not watching this performance. You're actually a performer in this piece. And so you sort of from 4 years old all the way up until modern day, you sort of see Maggie's story, and it's about 10 minutes long. She's a ballerina. You're sort of a ribbon dancer, so you're interacting
Aww.
with her story, and it's especially intense. Not only because we're working with Maggie, but just literally every single person involved has some cancer story, is either a personal cancer survivor, a current dealing with cancer, or has lost somebody to cancer. So it's an insanely personal piece.
You're going to make me cry. I'm going to watch this and I'm going to cry. I know that.
It's a really beautiful piece that we're extraordinarily proud of. It is a technical achievement in that it uses technologies that have never been used before, and it definitely. It's kind of the first time that this immersive tech, volumetric video and VR, it's for me the first time that it's just been a story that you can watch and
you could go
experience.
into somebody else's life and somebody else's heart.
It's not a tech demo.
This is awesome. Oh my gosh! I wish we had more time. I have so many more questions I want to ask you. This is going to be part one of my interview
Absolutely.
with Andy Cochrane of Springbok Entertainment, right?
Yep.
Because
Anytime.
we're talking about the 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us again where the website is.
It's the100%.com. So 100pct100pct.com. Obviously, we're going to be updating it once everything goes live. Right now, it's mostly placeholder stuff, but
and this is a Stand Up to Cancer VR project.
Yep.
And you have several sponsors, Intel, HP, and OWC, among others.
Yep.
It's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to see technology, creativity, and doing good in the world merging. That's a wonderful thing. Yeah, you touched my heart. Thank you. Well, this is Cirina Catania with OWC Radio here at the Creative Club at NAB 2019 with Andy Cochrane of Springbok Entertainment. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. And remember what I always say, get up off your chair and go do something wonderful today. Have a great day. Thank you.